Former WWE star Alberto Del Rio discussed why John Cena is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. What, he's not number one? What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the review space. And former WWE heavyweight champion Alberto El Patron, aka formerly Alberto Del Rio, depending on if he does come back. Well, I'm sure if he goes back to WWE, he's going to be Del Rio again. He ended up speaking with Contralona TV, and he had an interview there. During the interview, Patron remembered his win at the 2011 Royal Rumble, while also acknowledging that John Cena is one of the best wrestlers alive today. Not surprised. John Cena is considered one of the greatest of all time. He might not be the most technically sound. There's definitely a lot better in-ring performers when it comes to performing actual moves and maneuvers. A lot more smooth than John Cena. No, Cena's a lot more robotic. His in-ring style is a lot more stiff-looking, and he's not exactly the most graceful guy. I mean, check out his, springboard stunner. He barely was able to connect with it when he was doing it back then. But the thing with Cena and what makes him so great and so incredible is his ability and longevity. His ability also to have good matches. I was going to say his ability to have tremendous, high profile matches and be able to connect with a crowd. The guy's very charismatic. He's incredibly jacked up. Always had a really muscular bodybuilder physique since the early 2000s when he came in and debuted, right? So Cena is going to go down as one of the top faces ever. And arguably, he might be number one just because of his longevity. He's been like the top guy since 2005, 2006. And he's still considered like one of the, biggest stars that they've had. I mean, granted, yeah, he's part-time now, a little bit more of a part-timer now when he's doing the Hollywood stuff. And, he's not full-time as much as he used to be anymore. That's more of a responsibility given to guys like Roman Reigns and maybe even guys like Seth Rollins and those kind of guys, the younger generation. And Cena's kind of on his way out, but Cena's definitely going to go down as one of the greatest overall characters they've ever had. Whether it was the Doctor of Thugonomics when he was ripping off the 8 Mile gimmick, or the 8 Mile rapping stuff, the freestyle rapping stuff. And then he switched into, when he became WWE champion, and he became an actual main event top level guy. Became more of the Marine character, the more pro-American, I guess, or pseudo pro-American, kind of a G.I. Joe, kind of a generic, babyface. And he became the face of the PG era by the late 2000s, 2008, 2009. He became a lot more watered down in terms of like the PG, but that was just because of the writing, and he was a lot more of a PG character. But he still, he stayed on top. He still became the top guy. He still maintained that top level main event status. So let's take a look at the rest of this interview by Alberto. For Patron, winning the Rumble match in 2011 was a significant highlight in the storied career he's come to see. He is grateful to have the opportunity to grow with the greatest rivals, including John Cena, who Patron claims is one of the very best wrestlers in the ring. I feel like, because we are talking about with Alberto here, I feel like Alberto, he's a very political guy. Not political in terms of politicking his way onto the top, but he knows which kind of individual he wants to praise, and he knows there's certain guys that he likes, and he knows that John Cena is a top guy. So I have no doubt that Alberto wants to praise John Cena because he respects him. He kind of looks at him as a solid dude, but also it's good for him to talk up John Cena because Cena was the top guy. He's in a very good position. And of course, you're not going to, tear down and make fun of somebody like Cena. And I just think genuinely that Alberto has a genuine respect for him. But I do think this is, like, why is he praising John Cena? Out of nowhere. Does he want to go back to WWE? Does he want to do an angle with Cena? I notice wrestlers, they often do this when they want to go back to WWE or they want to do something with WWE again. It's like they want to be in the good graces of WWE, so they end up praising the top guy, they end up praising John Cena, they end up praising, whoever's on top at the moment. So I have no doubt that Alberto also has like ulterior motives. I have no doubt that a part of him wants to, maintain that good, praising John Cena and maintain that good, solid relationship with WWE. Like, yeah, like I like Cena, and then so it's almost like you're still praising the company, so that anytime that he wants to come back, or hey, I want to come back to WWE, they'll take him back with open arms. I have no doubt about that, because wrestlers, they tend to be very political in terms of praising the top stars in the company. They want to be on the good side of the company. But let's continue with this interview. I thank them for the time I was with WWE and everything they gave me. The Royal Rumble marked my life, marked my experience, Patron said. But I learned from many people. I became a better wrestler thanks to my matches with Edge, with Christian, with Rey Mysterio, with John Cena. Of course, he didn't mention CM Punk. CM Punk's another guy that he ended up praising in the past. But, of course, Punk has a bad relationship so far with WWE. So, of course, I don't think Alberto's going to want to mention him. But and Punk has also praised Alberto. So they seem to have a friendly relationship, or a mutual respect. With John Cena, who even though you, the fans, want to criticize him, John Cena is one of the best wrestlers of the universe. Wrestlers, yes, I said it well, and I repeat it. Wrestlers. Well, obviously that's what John Cena is. He's a pro wrestler. Like, what else is he? He's not the greatest technical wrestler, but he is one of the most popular, charismatic stars they've ever had, and overall performers. He's not the greatest in-ring talent, but he's capable enough. And he's got the other areas covered. He's got the look. He's not like too small. He's got the size. He's not like 5 foot nothing. The guy's at least 6 feet tall. He's got mic skills. He's able to be funny and connect with audiences and sell a lot of merchandise. So Cena is a top wrestler. He is a top guy. It's just that he was never one of the greatest in-ring technicians. Patron believes there is a stark contrast in choreography being done to keep a match engaging and legitimate wrestling, and he thinks the difference lies in how rehearsed things are. Patron is unimpressed with the matches that focuses more on choreographed spots. And that I can agree with. I think I understand what he's talking about. A lot of choreography, a lot of matches come across as like they're going through the motions. A lot of these high spot, indie, vanilla kind of wrestlers that all they're doing is spot fest after spot fest, high flying, flipping, diving, and that's all they kind of do. And so Alberto continues, don't get confused, doing choreography in the ring can be done by anyone. I take the guy who works in a gas station on the corner and I teach him a choreography for a week, and I swear he can do it in the ring. Putting yourself in the ring to wrestle, create those emotions, ups and downs within the match. One moment dominates the one and one moment dominates the other, and without having created a choreography. That is the real wrestling. I know that the business has changed, and some like that kind of choreography. I guess he's talking about the high-flying flippity spot fests. I don't like it. That's not a wrestling match. The organic moments that John Cena created over the years are some of the reasons Patron thinks he's regarded as one of the greatest. But so Alberto continues, but John Cena is a master of that, and being able to go out into the ring and wrestle with quality for 45 minutes against someone you've never seen him in your life. I learned that from many wrestlers, but especially from all the matches I had with John Cena. In all that time I spent outside the arenas listening to him and learning from him, I swear there is no one better listening to the fans and knowing what they want and how to make them cheer other than John Cena. Cena's good, and he's definitely smooching a little bit of that Cena backside. I mean, he's praising a lot of, giving him a lot of compliments, heaping a lot of praise on Cena. Again, I kind of question why he's doing it right now, unless he wants to be back in WWE. That little smoochy. Oh, Cena, you're so good. Please let me back in WWE so I can finish my career there. That's how a part of this interview comes across. Again, I have no doubt that he does see value in Cena, and look, I look at Cena as a pretty good superstar, overall performer, overall wrestling star. It's just that, I mean, the guy doesn't have the in-ring abilities of some of the best we've ever seen in the world. Like the greatest in-ring performers we've ever seen, guys like a Shawn Michaels or a Bret Hart, or even somebody like an AJ Styles. I mean, those guys are much more technically and much more profound in-ring performers, much more incredible. But Cena is capable. He's capable of having good matches. He's had good matches with Shawn Michaels. He's had good matches with AJ Styles. He's had good matches with like Roman Reigns. Guys that you wouldn't expect. Guys like Kevin Owens. So Cena's capable for sure. It's just that when I look at his sloppy moves, and when I look at his kind of his stiff movements and his horrible STF submission moves, he's very sloppy to look at. He looks so awkward. You know what I mean? Like, he's just an awkward in-ring style. And so I don't think he's very fluid, and I don't think he's tremendous. I think he's a good in-ring performer, but it's his look, his charisma, his connection with the fans, and the personality that make him into a popular star. His ability to sell merchandise. Not so much the in-ring moves and the amazingness of his movements. And I don't really think that, man, the whole listening to the fans and all that. I mean, the way that Cena's been booked as like a generic babyface. He hasn't turned heel since 2004 or something. He hasn't been heel in many years, like a decade and a half. I can't really say that they listen to the fans. You know what I'm saying? They don't really, not really listening to the fans. It's more like they just kind of do whatever they want, and they kind of just push Cena the way that they want to. This generic babyface, this generic Superman. They used to call him Super Cena back in the day. I've never fully bought into Cena as this guy is my favorite. I've never been that, and I certainly would never buy any John Cena merchandise. I'm not going to buy a Cena t-shirt or a Cena action figure. I don't care about that stuff. That stuff does not interest me at all. So Cena doesn't drive me to want to buy into the product, but I think as an overall performer, I can see why he's pushed. He's done so much for WWE, and he's sold so much merchandise, and he's done so much, Make-A-Wish, and he's done movies and WWE films and all these different things, these extracurricular, promoting the WWE outside of America. I mean, he's done so much. That's exactly, yeah. Matthew here made a comment, and he's 100% on point. He's kissing up to go back to WWE. Soon he will say Roman is the best of this generation in pro entertainment. Yeah, according to Matthew. Exactly. He's kissing up to go back to WWE. That's what it. Yeah, that's what I get. He said the other day that he wants to finish his career in WWE. Exactly. He wants to go back, I think, to WWE. That's part of why I think Alberto did this, and that's pretty much it. I mean, that's all I want to say. I do agree that Cena is a very valuable commodity, and he's proven that. He is one of the top guys ever, and he's become the face of WWE, and obviously you can see why Vince McMahon pushed him the past decade and a half as, the number one guy and all that. And they've tried with Roman, and Roman hasn't quite done that quite yet. Even now, he's never really had that super connection with the fans where everybody's cheering him and everybody's buying his merchandise and all that. So Roman's not quite there yet, but Cena's going to be the last guy to really become the most pushed superstar since probably Hulk Hogan. It's Hogan, Bruno Sammartino, Hogan, maybe Bob Backlund to a degree, and then by the mid-90s, kind of switch back and forth between guys like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. Those kind of guys carried it. The smaller guys, at least smaller than Hogan. And then by the late 90s, it was Austin and Rock that made it super mainstream. They became super popular stars, Austin and Rock. But then Cena, I think, was able to, at least he tried to take on the try to carry that torch after The Rock and Austin stopped performing. When they left, or they stopped, they were gone. Cena was kind of that guy. He became that lone guy. I think they also tried it with Batista, but Batista was, I think, a little too old, and he just wasn't 100% super charismatic enough to kind of carry that torch. It became Cena. He became the top guy that, he became the top guy in the in the business for many years. But I don't know, I never fully bought into the character. I always looked at Cena as he's not as good as Rock. He's not as good as Austin. He's not as charismatic or incredibly popular as Hulk Hogan. He was never on that like level. You know what I'm saying? Even though he was technically the top guy in the company and he was the number one position guy every year, almost every year, was John Cena. I never saw him as bigger than Austin or bigger than Rock or, better in the ring than HBK or better in the ring than Bret the Hitman Hart. Cena was a very reliable top guy for the mid-late 2000s. For a guy in the PG era, back when ratings started to fall down and, the product was becoming a lot more watered down, and for, like little kids in the PG era, he was a good face for that company for that time period. So Cena is, I would say he is one of the greatest just because he's able to have that longevity and become so reliable. But I can't say that he is number one. I can't say that he is the greatest ever, that he's better than everybody else. I think in some instances you can make an argument and say, well, he's the longest tenured. He's the longest reigning. He's one of the most consistent guys. But I don't think he's better than Austin. I don't think he's better than Rock. I don't think he's better than Hogan. I don't even think he's better than like Macho Man Randy Savage. Those kind of guys. Like I think Cena is good, and he's gonna be probably top 20 of all time, top 20, maybe even top 10, maybe. But he just happens to be he happened to be the biggest fish at a time when WWE was kind of a smaller pond. A big fish in a small pond. That's what Cena really was. And he was able to last really long because there was no more Rocks and Austins and some of the other guys that kind of left. There were Lesnar. I remember Lesnar left for a long time, since like 2004. So it was a lot easier for Cena to kind of become the number one guy. Even with Randy Orton and Batista on the main roster as well. You have to compete with certain guys. So that's it for this episode of the Review Space. Alberto definitely using his smooching, kissing up to WWE, and I love Cena. He's so good. Please take me back, WWE. Take me back. I want to go back. That's basically what Alberto Del Rio is doing. So, as far as Alberto coming back, I don't really care much about him anymore. I think there was potential with Alberto. He could have been one of the best like Latino, Hispanic, or Mexican wrestlers in WWE. He could have been like that top guy where he was like, the guy has size. He's got the MMA credentials. He's a good-looking guy. He's got a certain charisma about him, and not necessarily like mic skills, but in terms of his presence, he's got that physical charisma. So. But the way that they basically ruined his gimmick, they took away the fancy car, they took away the cool entrance, they took away they turned him babyface instead of keeping him as a really cool like a villain. He had that kind of gangster swagger to him when he first came in as that Mexican aristocratic. He almost came across as a Mexican drug lord. You know what I mean? Like a Mexican OG, like a Mexican cartel leader, you know what I mean? He had that cool feel about him, but then they changed him, made him a lot more generic, a lot more babyface. He became a lot more like, I'm Mr. Mexico and Mr. Mexico, the Mexican flag and all that, and became a lot more nationalistic, like Mexican pride kind of thing. And he wasn't as interesting as a babyface. So I think that was the beginning of the end for Alberto. And so do I want him back? Not necessarily. I'm sure maybe one day he'll end up in the WWE Hall of Fame just because he is a former world champion and a former WWE champion, a former Royal Rumble winner and all that. He's accomplished a lot. So I have no doubt he's probably going to be in the WWE Hall of Fame someday. But I don't really want him back in the company right now. There's just no need for him. I don't think he's going to contribute much. He came back and he won the U.S. title from John Cena, and he did nothing with it, And then they paired him up with Zeb Coulter as Mexican America, and nothing came out of that. So I'm not really interested in Alberto coming back. Plus, push the Mexican guys you already have. The Latin like lucha libre guys you already have. Guys like Andrade, Andrade Cien Almas, and even some of the other Mexican high flyers that they have, the mask guys. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Alberto, don't really care so much about him anymore. I guess he ended up he ended up hooking up with Paige. That's a huge accomplishment. Probably his best #1 accomplishment is ending up with Paige. For at least a couple of years there. So that's an accomplishment. So that's it for this episode of Review Space. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to the channel. Click on the bell button for the latest notifications. And until next time, peace.